The House of Representatives resumed sitting on Tuesday after the Christmas break amidst the pledge by the Speaker Yakubu Dogara to tackle the incessant fuel crisis. The House of Representatives resumed sitting on Tuesday after the Christmas break amidst the pledge by the Speaker Yakubu Dogara to tackle the incessant fuel crisis, which has remained unabated for some time now. He also promised to look into the numerous killings across the country, particularly in Benue State, which have drawn worldwide condemnations.
It is important that we show both person and accept responsibility for these wanton killings, without which we would never find a solution to this evil. We cannot afford to fold our hands and pretend that all is well with our country. We cannot throw up our hands in defeat. We have a responsibility to all Nigerians, regardless of creed or ethnicity, in line with the constitutionally stated primary purpose of the government we're serving, which is securing the welfare, including the lives and property of our people. This we must do by ensuring that every law-abiding Nigerian is protected wherever he chooses to live in the country, and everyone who is up in arms against our citizens is quickly brought to justice wherever they are in the country.
He promised that the 2018 budget will be quickly passed by both houses so as to address the many social and economic challenges in the country.
The 2018 appropriation bill is before us for legislative action. We promise to do our utmost to pass it expeditiously. We should keep our word. However, this can only be possible if the ministries, departments and agencies, MDS, cooperate effectively with relevant committees of the House by providing required information as may be requested of them.
The Speaker made this charge while welcoming back lawmakers from the Christmas break. In a related development, the House has adopted the motion calling for the investigation into the controversy over the appointment of the new DG NIA. The motion, which came under matter of urgent public importance, was sponsored by Honorable Diri Doye from Bayelsa State, which was titled "The Need to Investigate the Alleged Cutting Away of $44 billion from the NIA and Issues Surrounding the Appointment of the New DG NIA, Rufai Abubakar." The lawmaker also pointed out the controversy over the identity and nationality of the new DG amidst not too long controversy and discovery of huge amounts belonging to the agency in an Ikoyi apartment in Lagos State.
This report tells us that about $260 million was approved for the NIA. And out of that amount, what they can lay hands on that they have seen is what we heard about the Ikoyi Gate scandal, and of course, just a few days back, the $44 million, which was in the vault of the NIA in Abuja.
Supporting the motion, Tobi Okechukwu, a lawmaker from Enugu, says it is an embarrassment to the country.
Said rightly that the dust has not settled on the Ikoyi Gate. And here again, we are witnesses to another exposure that completely derails the intent and spirit of our laws. My only worry in the motion he moved is that he said that a report that was to come from the Ikoyi Gate scandal has not been brought, both from the executive and the one we set up in this house has not been brought forward. We've not had the report. So I think it will be fairly disingenuous for us to say and overburden our Committee on National Security to go again and start investigating $44 million when they have not reported on the 43.
Lawmakers say the cash scandal paints a poor picture of our national security and diminishes the reputation of the agency in the eyes of the Nigerian public and the international community. It, however, mandated the House Committee on National Security and Intelligence to investigate and report back to the House within 2 weeks. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. Shelter is a basic necessity of life like water, and most people are desirous of having it. But experience has shown that in the desperation to acquire one, most unsuspecting Nigerians find themselves duped by people who masquerade as estate developers. Successive governments in the country have identified housing as a basic necessity of life, but despite efforts by these governments to ensure affordable housing, it has faced various challenges due to activities of fraudsters masquerading as estate developers to dupe unsuspecting Nigerians. But the House is proposing a solution through a public-private partnership arrangement as a way out of the situation through a motion by Honorable Joseph Ejiawole from Edo State.
Also note that in a bid to actualize the above injunction, the federal government set up a public-private partnership arrangement which entails government providing land for estate developers who are willing to use their resources to develop real estate for sale to members of the public at affordable rates.
Lawmakers, while supporting the motion, says once affordable housing is achieved alongside water and other major necessities of life, corruption will disappear in the country.
Every year we pass budget in this house. These men and women that are slaving to put food on the table, whatever they earn is not even enough to send their children to school. Then you see these guys collaborate with government agencies and dupe these ones. Tell me, even a man that does not want to steal money, he has 3 years, he has 4 years, he has 5 years to spend in the civil service. Tell me if such a man, even if he's a bishop, will not be corrupted, because he leaves the service, there will be no shelter, there will be no roof over his head and that of his children.
Already there is hot blown air work at committee level on this issue, and I think all we need just is to refer to whatever this motion to the Housing Committee so that the technical committee will be able to subsume some of the discussion here and bring out a very better result. Thank you, Mr.
The House therefore called on the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing to put in place appropriate mechanism to ensure the registration and proper regulation of the activities of all estate developers to be used for the PPPA scheme. The motion was adopted unanimously by the House, with the Committee on Housing mandated to conduct an investigative hearing on the fraudulent practices in the sector, which have over the years hampered housing development policy in the country, and report back in 8 weeks for further legislative action. In a related development, the House has passed for second reading the bill for an act to provide imprisonment, registration and monitoring of persons who have been convicted of sexual offences against children under 18 years. The bill was sponsored by Honorable Ochilogo Idagbo from Cross River State as he called for monitoring of the activities of convicts of these offences.
Mr. Speaker, we know that minors most times, when they are being abused in manners like this, do not speak out, are not courageous enough to say this is what is happening, and most times they live with this assault and it affects their future. They are not able to fulfill their destiny. There are some cases where some minors have had to commit suicide because of abuses of such nature.
Other lawmakers, while supporting the motion, expressed disgust in the actions of pedophiles and their continuous acceptance by the society. They said these individuals pose great danger to the public.
So keeping records of such criminals who will leave the adult female there that are probably free for them to have, that they can walk up to have, and decide to abuse minors, decide to some go as far as fathers violating their children, and uncles. You have a nephew coming to your home on holidays, you're not careful, your female daughters are abused before he returns back to school, and you say, this person I've just reported to the police, there's no record, on and on and on. Another family takes him in, probably labels you a wicked auntie, another family takes him in, and he goes on to abuse another child.
Sexual offenders, particularly those who molest infants, to enable us have records of them, enable public institutions and in fact homes to be conscious of the existence of such dangerous elements in the society. I would say it's very timely, it's in line with international best practices, and we should support this kind of bill.
The House suggested that notification of the conviction should be forwarded to law enforcement agencies, owners of schools, child care service providers, social workers, employers of labor and the general public to serve as a deterrent and to protect children who are at risk. The bill passed for second reading and was referred to the Committee on Human Rights and Justice for further legislative action. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. The House of Representatives is set to investigate the disbursement of over 300 billion naira subsidy for petrol by the federal government through the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in 2017, despite the subsidy not captured in the 2017 budget and subject to approval by the National Assembly. The motion, which was sponsored by Sunday Karimi from Kogi State while calling for the investigation on the matter, said the action by the federal government and the NNPC amounts to corruption and embezzlement, since no withdrawal can be made from the Federation account without the approval of the National Assembly.
Despite the fact that the government has pegged official rate at 145 naira per litre, at the moment, it is the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation that is paying for the cost of differential of 26 naira per litre. Despite the fact that the Federal Executive has posted that it has removed petroleum subsidy, and there is no parliamentary appropriation for subsidy payment in 2017 Appropriation Act.
Supporting the motion, lawmakers, while condemning the action of the government and the NNPC, says it amounts to a breach of constitution and blamed it on the impunity and executive recklessness that has characterized the actions of the present administration so far.
Mr. Speaker, our reason by then was that we knew that this subsidy do not favor the common man. They just say it in papers that we are removing, we have subsidy in petroleum product. Mr. Speaker, let's be very honest today. Even as it is today, are we saying the man in Sokoto is aware of any subsidy? He buys this fuel at a price very exorbitant. And so what is the subsidy the poor man is enjoying? So, Mr. Speaker, our reason by then was that there was a round-tripping cartel in the government and among people and among petroleum dealers, where they go and present papers and this money are round-tripped and they get their money without bringing in the product.
Both in the executive and the legislative arm of government have sworn to jealously guard, protect, and uphold. So there is a very serious breach of the Constitution that borders on executive arrogance and borders on executive recklessness. So we must make sure that the powers that is conferred unequivocally on the National Assembly by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be jealously protected and guarded.
Today, no refinery is working in Nigeria. What is going on? All this fuel subsidy we are talking about is as a result of the failure of NNPC. They should be unbundled. And I've said, the Minister of State for Petroleum, I thought he's a man that can make things happen for this country. But he has failed. He has failed this dear nation. And Nigerians are suffering. Go today, on my way to this chamber, people lined up, queued up to buy petrol, to buy fuel in their cars. All of us are going through pain and agony. Nobody is exempted. Whether you are poor or rich, what is wrong with this country?
The House stated that the act amounts to an impeachable offense by the President, declaring also that it cannot choose aspects of Constitution it will or will not obey. It therefore called for an investigation into the breach and summoned the Minister of State for Petroleum, the GMD NNPC, and the Minister of Finance to appear before the Committee on Petroleum Downstream and Finance to investigate and report back for further legislative actions. In a later development, the House also condemned strongly the incessant arrest, brutality, and malicious prosecution of Nigerian students by Indian police authorities. The action was brought before the House by Honorable Frederick Agbedi from Bayelsa State, who in his submission stated that these attacks on Nigerians became so gruesome that it took frantic efforts by human rights lawyers to locate their places of detention. The lawmaker says it is the constitutional responsibility of government to guarantee the protection of its citizens irrespective of where they live.
Informed of a new and rising trend of profiling, arrests, police brutality and malicious prosecution of Nigerian students by the police, including the incident of 30th December 2017 at Yaprem Telangana Street, where some Nigerian students like Chidebube Chukwuma, of 19 years old, Priscilla Sunday, and Shola were arrested and taken away, and it took the frantic efforts of colleagues and a human rights lawyer to locate their place of detention where they have remained since date.
The position was supported by lawmakers who condemned the action in its entirety. But Honorable Sani Zoro cautioned that the House must tread in the path of caution in condemning the actions by the Indian police authorities so as not to aid some criminal elements among these Nigerians in perpetuating criminality abroad.
A teenager of Nigerian parentage was raped in an Indian school, and the Indian police tried everything to suppress it. I also interacted with the Nigerian community, the president of the Nigerian Union in Noida, and all you hear is tales of woes, of humiliation, harassment, molestation of Nigerians in India. So I will urge this house, I will urge members to please, as a matter of urgency and necessity, to support this investigative motion, because the life of one Nigerian, if what Mr. Agbedi stated is an isolated case, there are more things that are happening, and there is need to protect any Nigerian that is passing through any form of discrimination and humiliation in any country.
I want to guarantee and assure every one of us here that all these cases, including the cases mentioned in this motion, are documented in the Nigerian High Commission. So we do not need to waste the resources that we have, which we do not actually have, to send parliamentarians to go on a jamboree just to go and investigate cases when we can actually summon the Minister of Foreign Affairs or some officials of the Directorate of the Asian Directorate to give us evidence about this gentleman, first of all. Secondly,
the House, however, resolved to mandate the Nigerian High Commission in India to interface with the Indian authorities to ensure that the matter is treated with fairness. The Committee on Foreign Affairs has been mandated also to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the situation, with a view of finding a lasting solution and report back in 2 weeks for further legislative action. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. The resolve and integrity of the House of Representatives as a true representative of the people was tested at the plenary on Tuesday, following the motion on the state of the insecurity in the country brought to the floor for debate by Honorable Gabriel Kolawole from Ondo State and Distin Take from Benue State. The lawmakers in their submission raised worries over the incessant killings by headsmen and some faceless person which, according to them, is threatening the peace and unity of the country. They raised concern that despite the countless numbers of people killed so far, there have not been any record of arrest and prosecution by the security agencies, as the deadly act continues unabated.
Need for the federal government to declare a state of emergency on security over spate of deadly attacks in the country by suspected headsmen. The House notes the deadly and sustained attacks across the country from the beginning of the year by suspected headsmen, particularly in Benue State, supposedly over some missing cows, which attacks led to the death of over 80 people. Also notes the attacks on worshippers in River State who were returning from a religious program to mark the new year, which led to the killing of about 17 people.
That the President has directed the Inspector of Police to relocate to Benue State, concerned that some of the police officers attached to the zone are reported to have been killed by the headsmen.
Lawmakers, while debating on the motion, condemned the killing and the lack of efforts by the government to stop the killings, as some also tried to justify these killings.
Place them in a place that is arid. It rains only once, 2, 3 times in a year, and their lives is completely attached to the animals which they rear. Now, Mr. Speaker, this herdsman needs our protection. And I blame the government squarely for not providing an enabling environment for the herdsman to remain where he is.
Issues of the nation's porous borders, arms proliferation, and the need to revisit the ECOWAS Treaty on free movement of persons were also discussed during the debates. Lawmakers unanimously condemned the killings and agreed that there is a need to set up a committee that will investigate the state of insecurity and killings in the country, and that the ministers of agriculture and his interior counterpart, as well as the service chiefs, the police and the DSS be invited also. Emmanuel Ehijine, PayTV News. The House of Representatives has adopted the motion on the need for the importance of the creation of a standing committee on conflict resolution to handle the instant cases of communal crisis, border disputes, herdsmen farmers attacks, militancy and many others across the country. The motion was sponsored by Deputy Speaker of the House, Lasun Yusuf. While debating, he pointed on the need to create a specialized committee outside the existing ones, like the police and the DSS, to deal dispassionately on issues which threaten the existence of the country whenever the need arises.
We are in the third year of the fourth year of this tenure of the Assembly. And I'm also aware that traditionally we always seek to amend our standing orders at the beginning of the tenure of each Assembly. And I'm also aware that there are other committees of the House that deal with security matters. But the issue of Nigeria in terms of conflict and security matters have been issues that have been talked about by so many different people who do not have organized system.
Lawmakers in supporting the motion says the motion is timely as it will serve as a veritable platform through which peace building and conflict can easily be resolved, especially at this period of crisis that has rocked the country.
Representing Mr. Speaker at the African Leaders Summit under the auspices of the Universal Peace Federation, where the role of Parliament in peace building and conflict resolution was a topical issue on the agenda of discourse. And therefore, issues of conflict resolution and peace building are now central and topical in our national discourse, given our quest to resolve the intractable issues of violent herdsmen attacks and all the critical issues.
Better to have members from every state and the Federal Capital Territory so that information about conflicts can get to the committee early enough, so that the committee will be as proactive as possible and be able to notify relevant security agencies.
But opposing the motion, some lawmakers observed that creating a standing committee on the conflict resolution will encroach on the functions of committees which have similar terms of reference. But the mover of the motion quickly corrected that fact and says they should toe the line of nationalism.
He said oversight of the Institute of Peace and Conflict Management. My dear colleagues, Peace and Conflict Management, Institute of Peace and Conflict Management was set up in February 2000 under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, so if you go ahead and create this committee that is being proposed here, you have a situation today, the Committee on Internal Security, Public Safety will come and complain that we have encroached, this committee has encroached on this jurisdiction. Committee on Police will come the next day and say the same thing.
But everybody knows that since 1960 in Nigeria, which is the second half of the First Republic of Nigeria, we've been having crisis. And so why, if in our generation, we cannot sit down and begin to provide solution? The only thing we know in Nigeria, if we want to talk about Nigeria, is to refer to Sardauna of Sokoto, refer to Tafawa Balewa, refer to Sikh, refer to Awolowo, refer to Aminu Kano, who amongst our own generation is being referred to in that context.
The motion was adopted and referred for another date when it will be fully debated and considered by the whole House before its final adoption. In a related development, the House has adopted a motion on the need to investigate the huge debt owed local indigenous companies by the international oil and gas companies, which according to lawmakers has led to the collapse of some of these companies. The motion, which was sponsored by Honorable Kingsley Chinda from Rivers State, says if the huge debt which runs into billions of dollars are not paid by the erring international oil and gas companies, it will not only lead to the complete collapse of these companies, but also job losses of immeasurable proportion, which will be dangerous for the economy.
Recently, we've been recording serious job loss or losses. And some of these things are due to avoidable circumstances, and this is one instance where local contractors will render services to international companies and they are owed, whilst these international companies repatriate these monies back to their own country to boost the economy. Rather than receive single petitions from these contractors every day, I think it is proper for us to look at it holistically. Where these debts are genuine, we will take legislative steps to ensure that they are settled and also secure our own economy.
The motion was supported by Mohammed Gululu, who called for an ad hoc committee to be set up to quickly salvage the situation.
Leader, Honorable Chinda, to refer it to an ad hoc committee instead of the main committee.
The motion and amendment for an ad hoc committee to be set up to investigate and to recover the huge debts by the IOCs was also adopted by the House by unanimous voice vote. Emmanuel Ehijene, PTV News. A one-day public hearing to amend the Engineers Registration Act commenced at the House of Representatives on Monday, with many stakeholders calling for the enabling laws that will ensure the regulation and practice of the engineering profession in the country. Bothered by the high incidence of building collapse and road accidents across the country, it became imperative for an enabling law to regulate the engineering practice in the country. These were the views of the Speaker Yakubu Dogara, represented by the Deputy Speaker Lasu Yusuf and the Chairman, House Committee on Works at the hearing.
The bill is very critical because it underscores the importance of House of Representatives places on professionalism. The amendment seeks to promote and ensure the highest standard of professionalism in engineering practice in Nigeria. It is not in doubt that the engineering profession is central to development itself, as it touches our daily lives in many ways. As a matter of fact, I doubt that life itself will be in existence without engineering.
These objectives are to 1. Empower the Council to arrest and prosecute quacks in the practice of engineering. 2. Give oversight responsibility to the Council over companies engaged in engineering projects in Nigeria. 3. Enforce the regulations, rules, ethics, and codes of practice. 4. Register and license all engineering personnel and firms. 5. Include offenses and penalties as well as their enforcement. 6. Empower the Council to earn more revenue to fund these operations and activities to complement government funding. 7. Extend the mandate of the Council to include engineering regulation and monitoring.
Stakeholders, while commending the committee for putting together the public hearing, said the engineering profession is a unique one, stating that the aim of the bill is to seek the development of the country.
The law endows the Council with the powers to regulate and control the practice of engineering in Nigeria in all its aspects and ramifications, ensure that the engineering is practiced by industry and practitioners according to acceptable and prescribed standards and abiding by the ethics and canons of the profession.
And when you are driving a body of knowledge, there must be an incentive. If there's no incentive, everybody will just keep quiet. And this is what we want to be introduced, into the current law.
The aim of the hearing, according to the chairman, is to ensure that at the time the bill is presented for third reading, it will reflect a broad spectrum of stakeholders and will align with the global best practices. It is worthy of note that bad building design is responsible for the spate of building collapse, and poor road, which is responsible for claiming thousands of lives year in, year out. Emmanuel Ehijene, PTV News. Members of the House of Representatives Extraction took the former #1 citizen Olusegun Obasanjo to the cleaners as they unanimously condemned his letter asking President Muhammadu Buhari not to run for a second term come 2019. They were all unanimous in their views that as wonderful as some of his claims are in his letter to the president on the present state of the nation, he, Obasanjo, was part of those that installed Buhari and even went ahead to bury the party, the PDP, that gave him 2 terms as president. The lawmakers went ahead to accusing the former president for institutionalizing corruption through the introduction of Ghana Must Go bags into the National Assembly as bribe to lawmakers, and was also guilty of forcing himself to seek a 3rd term in office, whereas the Constitution only allows for 2 terms. As such, he has no moral right to advise anyone on integrity matters.
I mean, for somebody who has been there for 8 years and you want a third term, not even going through the constitutional method. So what morality do you have to begin to play the role of a champion to Nigerians? Yes, Nigerians want something new, but I don't think that we should keep clapping our hands. You know, the problem with society is that when good people sit back and say nothing, they allow the bad people to continue to flourish and get all the accolades as if they are the champions. I think the good people of Nigeria, I think the clean persons in this country should begin to add their voice to politics. It is also a crime, I must say it. It is a crime against this country for those persons who have the competency, who have the moral standing to comment on issues and participate in public governance to keep quiet and do nothing.
The extent to which he has gone is something that will leave posterity to judge. And Muhammad Buhari still has about a year and a half to continue to fight corruption. And I also believe by this clarion call, he will still have by extension 4 more years to fight corruption. So it's still not late. Mr. President is doing very well in the fight against corruption. And I think that is even why people like the likes of Obasanjo are now rising in the same semantics of while you fight corruption, corruption fights back. I think Obasanjo is fighting back because he's a corrupt person.
The lawmakers condemned the call for a third force in the political space through his call for the formation of a new party to capture power from both parties who have ruled since 1999. They argue that the call is opposed to efforts so far to deepen the country's democracy, as others also advise the president to advise himself on his health challenges, since he who wears the shoes know where it pinches.
Don't we all know? Have we not is there anything that he said in that letter that we have not even debated in the National Assembly here? Is it the headsmen? Is it the corruption? We have talked about the cabal. He didn't even mention the cabal. He didn't have the courage to mention the cabal there. We have spoken about the headsmen, the cabal, the nepotism. You all have written again about it. That look at the service chiefs, look at everybody there, they are all from his tribe. You have all, there's nothing he has said that has not been said or that's new. So the messenger and the message should just go. But we know the message is already in the public domain. And then he took a swipe at PDP. What he wants is a new party. We cannot deepen our democracy like that. You govern under PDP. They went to bring you out from jail to become the president of this country. You did 2 terms. You wanted a 3rd term. That they frustrated. There's since then you have been very bitter. You gave us the man that succeeded you, and the man that succeeded that one, and even the one that's in another platform entirely, the present one. Now you are saying do away with PDP, do away with APC, form another party. Where are the people going to come from?
It is not what people say. My people say, if I send you a message, it is good for you to resend yourself before you deliver the message. If whatever people are saying resonates with him, he should go back to his room, sit down and think about it. It is his final decision that counts. The buck stops at his table. So I pray that whatever decision that is going to be taken by him should be for the betterment of Nigeria and Nigerians.
The last hasn't been heard, as more and more Nigerians have been reacting to the letter. But what is clear from these lawmakers is that retired generals who have helped plunge the country to its sorry state through their misrule over the years should remain retired and stay away from politics, as their advice is no more needed again. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. The House of Representatives has voted for a change in the order of the elections as proposed by the Independent National Electoral Commission ahead of the 2019 general elections. By its amendment to the Electoral Act, the National Assembly election will now hold first, while the governorship and state houses of assembly follows, with the presidential election coming last.
I wish to sincerely thank Mr. Chairman for bringing this committee together to look at every aspect of the Electoral Act, and today's work is going to conclude on this aspect. I hope that we will look at it diligently with a view to making the 2015 general election a hit-free, fair, 2019 general election a hit-free, fair, and a democratically accepted elections.
Clause 1 carried.
By the Commission's earlier arrangement, National Assembly and presidential elections are billed to hold first, but the legislators insist both elections must be on separate dates.
That any candidate who observes his name or that of his party missing on the list published in accordance with subsection 1 above shall notify the Commission in writing, signed by himself and supported with an affidavit not later than 21 days to the day of the election.
One other area of controversy is whether or not political parties' logo should be included on the nomination list, carrying party and candidates' names to be submitted to INEC.
Section 34 of the Principal Act is amended by adding a new subsection 2 and 3. That presupposes you're bound to have a subsection 1. Yes? And therefore, your primary original section 34 becomes 34(1). Are you with me? Yes? Now, therefore, if that becomes section 34(1), if you're following me, if you read that requirement at that 34(1), now back to the left column, the original clause, at that point, you've not asked the Commission to publish the name of the logo.
You're doing a call over. By the time you're doing that publication of name, why are we publishing names of candidates? Is to ensure that the candidates know their names are there. So if they know their names are there, they might as well know their logo and their party logo is properly represented. So it's like a call over. So at the point of election, there's really nothing anybody can do because it can happen. But let it be that INEC has an opportunity to correct errors before election.
By this proposal also, candidates for elections wishing to withdraw from the race are now to do so not later than 30 days to the poll, as elections finance was also increased by the committee. In all, the House considered and approved a total of 156 clauses as recommended by its Committee on Electoral and Political Party Matters. The approval, however, requires the concurrence of the Senate before being sent to the President for assent. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. Two bills to amend the FEMA, namely the Bill and Act to amend the Federal Road Maintenance Agency Act to restructure the agency and increase its funding, and the Bill for an Act to amend the FEMA Act to harmonize the Act with the Federal Highway Act with respect to the minister to grant road concession contract, commenced at the National Assembly on Tuesday. Declaring the one-day public hearing open, the Speaker, who was represented by the Majority Leader of the House, stated the importance of the bill, which according to him became expedient due to the bad state of roads across the country, which have posed danger to the citizenry, and the need to fix them through appropriate laws and adequate funding.
As members of Parliament, it is beholding on us to ensure we discharge our duties of lawmaking and representation with the interests of the people of Nigeria we represent being paramount. It is always a personal pride to be part of hearings such as this, which aim at practically and positively impacting the lives of Nigerians. It is no secret that the state of Nigerian roads nationwide needs serious attention. The vast spread of these roads necessitates the need for FEMA to be adequately funded in order to effectively discharge its duties. It gladdens my heart, though, that the government of the day, being a proactive one, will not find it difficult to implement the positive reforms these amendment bills seek to effect in the discharge of FEMA's duties, and to ensure the concessionary powers of the Minister of Works are channeled to the good of the ordinary Nigerian.
The chairman of the committee also spoke in tandem with the Speaker, but called for FEMA's recognition by the Ministry of Works as partners in making roads and highways in the country motorable.
After the committee had undertaken several oversight functions to FEMA, and after crisscrossing the Nigeria roads network, it was evident that the House Committee could not stand akimbo and watch the critical roads of FEMA appear unimportant. From our oversight function point of views, and as the chairman of the House Committee on FEMA, let me make bold to say once more that in order to effectively discharge its duties, FEMA needs not only to be funded adequately, but also needs urgent debate, relief intervention, and possibly budget increment.
The Minister of Works, who also supervises the agency while speaking on the proposed amendment, kicked against allocating 1% from the consolidated account to the agency, while the Director General of FEMA insisted on some level of autonomy for the agency to enable it function effectively, unhindered, if it must deliver on its core mandate.
These provisions conflict with the Federal Highways Act, which is also an act of the National Assembly, which clearly vests powers of management, of tolling, and all other ancillary responsibilities with respect to construction, maintenance of highways in the Minister for the time being responsible for works. Those powers are already clearly provisioned in the Federal Highways Act, another act of the National Assembly. So it would be, as it were, creating conflict within an agency that the ministry superintends to vest the power of the minister in that of the agency.
That, in short, has been the overriding objectives of all advocates of road sector reform. That is the bottom line of what the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, my own president, has presented. And we have been consistent in the professional sector of saying the need for having an agency.
The proposed amendment, which have passed second reading, was brought for public hearing to enable stakeholders contribute before its final presentation to the Committee of the Whole. The aim is to address the carnage on major highways, which is often caused by bad roads, and to strengthen the operational and financial capacity of FEMA for effective service delivery. Emmanuel Hijine, PTV News. The House of Representatives Committee on Capital Market and Institution on Tuesday at the National Assembly commenced public hearing on the imbroglio occasioned by the suspension of the former DG, SEC, by the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun. The aim, according to the committee, was also expressed by the Speaker, who was represented by the Minority Leader of the House, is to ensure better working and harmonious environment and also to restore the integrity of the Nigerian capital market, which was recently enmeshed in controversy following the suspension of his former DG, Munir Gwazu.
As legislature, we are not unmindful of the importance of the perception in the capital market. Similarly, integrity is very paramount to the growth of the capital market and the economy. However, regardless of the juicy package put together by stakeholders, no investor will be interested in putting funds in a market that is fraught with instability, confusion, crisis, and bickering.
The intention of this hearing is not to witch hunt, it's not to abate, it's to unravel the stories, get to the details of it, and make sure we make recommendations that will not allow such to reoccur again. Motions are tools which parliamentarians aggregate opinions of the people so as to, if need be, amend laws, because laws are not cast in stone. They are made based on information at the disposal of those who made those laws at that particular time.
We will make progress from here, and we only assure Nigerians that on our own side, we will be fair, we will be thorough, we will be just. And at the end of the day, we will ensure that justice is done to all.
In his submissions, the suspended DG faulted the public service rules quoted as reasons for suspension. He also accused the Minister of Interference, citing some cases which, according to him and his counsels, the minister had personal interest in.
The issue are the same thing, the issue of severance package, the issue of those companies, the issue of car grant, the issue of training, frivolous issues that I was flying business class. We showed them document that I've never flown business class based on the policy of government. They said at one time that I was flying first class. I said even when before government came out with its policy that chief executive should fly business class, our manual, and when I was commissioner, I was flying first class. But when I became DG, I never fly first class.
And what applies to him is the enabling law, which is the Investment and Securities Act, upon which he was appointed, subject to further answers that he will prefer in that respect. And then I was informed, further answers that he would give, that the members of the panel constituted public civil servants in the ministry, I don't know whether the ministry staff generally or personal staff of minister. I'll be surprised if they are the personal staff. One will envisage they will be officials in the ministry, perhaps the permanent secretary and all that.
But in reaction, the minister and the director legal insisted that contrary to the allegation by the suspended DG, due process was followed in his suspension, and all the ministry did was give policy direction and did not interfere on matter he was alleging to. The minister further insisted that Munir Gwarzo remains suspended as it stands.
We did not immediately suspend Mr. Gwarzo because every allegation is just that, it's an allegation. It must be subject to some scrutiny, and the policy of the whistleblower unit is they have two levels of investigation. One is cursory and the other is detailed. Due to the seniority of Mr. Gwarzo in the market and the potential impact of the matter, I asked them to go straight to level 2, which is you either prove a case or we throw this out. They came back with evidence that suggested that there was a very real need to issue a query to Mr. Gwarzo, which is the procedure. Mr. Gwarzo was then queried.
The committee further asked all parties to submit written submissions on the matter with recommendation on way out of the imbroglio. The committee further resolved to do everything possible to build confidence in the Nigerian stock market, which have suffered some setbacks for some time now, as it promises to be fair in its final submission. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News. The House of Representatives Committee on Capital Market and Institution on Tuesday at the National Assembly commenced public hearing on the imbroglio occasioned by the suspension of the former DG, SEC, by the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun. The aim, according to the committee, was also expressed by the Speaker, who was represented by the Minority Leader of the House, is to ensure better working and harmonious environment and also to restore the integrity of the Nigerian capital market, which was recently enmeshed in controversy following the suspension of his former DG, Munir Gwarzo.
As legislature, we are not unmindful of the importance of the perception in the capital market. Similarly, integrity is very paramount to the growth of the capital market and the economy. However, regardless of the juicy package put together by stakeholders, no investor will be interested in putting funds in a market that is fraught with instability, confusion, crisis, and bickering.
The intention of this hearing is not to witch hunt, is not to abate, is to unravel the stories, get to the details of it, and make sure we make recommendations that will not allow such to reoccur again. Motions are tools which parliamentarians aggregate opinions of the people so as to, if need be, amend laws, because laws are not cast in stone. They are made based on information at the disposal of those who made those laws at that particular time.
We will make progress from here, and we only assure Nigerians that on our own side, we will be fair, we will be thorough, we will be just. And at the end of the day, we will ensure that justice is done to all.
In his submissions, the suspended DG faulted the public service rules quoted as reasons for suspension. He also accused the Minister of Interference, citing some cases which, according to him and his counsel, the minister had personal interest in.
The issue at the same time, the issue of severance package, the issue of those companies, the issue of car grant, the issue of training, frivolous issues that I was flying business class. We showed them document that I've never flown business class based on the policy of government. They said at one time that I was flying first class. I said even when before government came out with its policy that chief executive should fly business class, our manual, and when I was commissioner, I was flying first class. But when I became DG, I never fly first class.
And what applies to him is the enabling law, which is the Investment and Securities Act, upon which he was appointed, subject to further answers that he will prefer in that respect. And then I was informed, further answers that he would give, that the members of the panel constituted public civil servants in the ministry, I don't know whether the ministry staff generally or personal staff of minister. I'll be surprised if they are the personal staff. One will envisage there will be officials in the ministry, perhaps the permanent secretary and all that.
But in reaction, the minister and the director legal insisted that contrary to the allegation by the suspended DG, due process was followed in his suspension, and all the ministry did was give policy direction and did not interfere on matter he was alleging to. The minister further insisted that Munir Gwarzo remains suspended as it stands.
We did not immediately suspend Mr. Guazo because every allegation is just that, it's an allegation. It must be subject to some scrutiny, and the policy of the whistleblower unit is they have two levels of investigation. One is cursory and the other is detailed. Due to the seniority of Mr. Guazo in the market and the potential impact of the matter, I asked them to go straight to level 2, which is you either prove a case or we throw this out. They came back with evidence that suggested that there was a very real need to issue a query to Mr. Guazo, which is the procedure. Mr. Guazo was then queried.
The committee further asked all parties to submit written submissions on the matter with recommendation on way out of the imbroglio. The committee further resolved to do everything possible to build confidence in the Nigerian stock market, which have suffered some setbacks for some time now, as it promises to be fair in its final submission. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News.
The House of Representatives has passed for second reading the bill seeking the amendments to the Federal Character Act that will give married women the option of indigenship whenever the need arises. It also seeks the establishment of a special tribunal to prosecute violators of the Federal Character Act on appointment, employment and infrastructural location and siting of national projects, with the aim to check abuses by public office holders, contrary to the perceived aim of the creation of a commission to unite, integrate and accommodate the diverse multi-ethnic and cultural Nigeria. The bill was sponsored jointly by Edward Pajak of Plateau State and Ochilego Idagbo from Cross River State.
It's not going to be all-encompassing, that is all women. And as we have heard, it only concerns only married women. If you are not married, you cannot enjoy the benefit of the amendment I'm seeking no to make. So the amendment is only one phrase to say that if a woman is married and she works in government.
Over the years, Mr. Speaker, this section has operated in breach. And because there is no tribunal in place where these complaints can be taken to, sometimes some of these breaches are left unattended. So it's a very straightforward amendment that I'm proposing, which is to say that there should be a tribunal, a Federal Character Tribunal, that will enforce some of these breaches of the Federal Character Principle as enshrined in our Constitution.
Lawmakers, while supporting the bill, insisted the bill will correct the abuses of the Federal Character Commission and also address the indigenship question, which have characterized appointments of women into higher positions of responsibilities in the country.
Let there be a straightforward, straight-lined and agreed position on where the married Nigerian woman belongs. That she has the right to say, yes, I am married to this man for life, I claim everything there, or I want to be with my father's house and have my inheritance there. It should be, the men are not restricted. It's only when it comes to the Nigerian woman that we begin to see all kinds of bottle holes. You are not from here, you are not from there.
Married to somebody in the Kaduna, or somebody from Imo, married to somebody in Lagos, and we call that we are one Nigeria. If we are one Nigeria, we have one country. We believe in this country. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, something is missing somewhere.
And apart from even employment, we look at Federal Character Principle only in terms of employment. No, in terms of also other infrastructure that are to be cited by the federal government. There is supposed to be no predominance of infrastructure in a particular area. The wealth is a national wealth that we believe the wealth should be distributed nearly with not necessarily equally, but it should be distributed with equity, because the needs may not be the same, and that is why we may not call it equally.
The bill passed second reading by unanimous votes and was referred to the House Committee on Federal Character for further legislative input. In another development, the House of Representatives is set to investigate the non-payment of fees and taxes by 19 out of the registered 21 lottery operators in the country. The House observed that despite the huge revenue earned by these lottery operators, most of them, if not all, still default in the payment of taxes as constitutionally provided by law and the acts that establish its operations. The motion, which was sponsored by Abdulrazak Namdas from Adamawa State, frowned at the attitude of the operators, stating that tax evasion in most advanced countries of the world is deemed as a very serious offense, as monies generated through it is usually used to sustain the economies of these countries.
However, in Nigeria, Mr. Speaker, lottery and gaming have opened up series of market opportunities for investors. In fact, in 2016, Mr. Speaker, it was estimated that Nigerians spend an average of 154 billion daily on betting, with 7.5 million lottery and 22 million sports betting players. According to Nigerian Lottery Regulatory Commission, projected profit from the promo lottery alone is about 45 billion naira, Mr. Speaker.
The lawmaker stated further that the Nigerian Lottery Commission can become one of the major revenue-generating agencies in the country if operators are well managed and made to pay their taxes regularly.
We should not take it lightly, because some countries in Asian countries, in South Africa, as I've stated, have also been able to rely on some of these to fund their projects to get revenue, and it helped their economy. And therefore, it is very important that we should give our Committee on Governmental Affairs that oversee the lottery to investigate why some of these operators do not pay. That out of the 21, only 2 or 3 were able to pay their responsibility. I therefore move, Mr. Speaker.
The motion was adopted by the House when it was presented for vote, and the House Committee on Governmental Affairs was mandated to carry out investigation into its activities from year 2000, fish out defaulters amongst them, and report back in 6 weeks for further legislative action.
Proceedings began with the chairman of the House Committee, SN Ekpeyong, stating the importance of the Niger Delta Ministry to the peace and development of the Niger Delta region, which is home to the economic subsistence of the country. He pointed out that the rift between contractors and the ministry, owing to non-release of funds by the ministry, has resulted to countless unfinished projects across the region, necessitating the intervention of the committee, but without cooperation from the ministry.
The aim of this defense is to scrutinize the submission made to the National Assembly by the Executive in line with Section 81(4) of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. The amount allocated to each line is not inavailable, as the committee will do the needful to ensure value for money in designated areas.
Members berated the ministry for failing to cooperate with the committee on countless occasions during oversight visits and through invitations for amicable resolution of the misunderstandings, which was often sabotaged by the ministry.
Honorable Chairman did not cite what happens the time we went to the ministry on oversight visit. It's like the minister or the ministry is making conscious effort, very conscious effort, to see that we did not carry out our oversight functions on the ministry. Our job, as you rightly stated by the Honorable Chairman, is to scrutinize all the submissions made by the ministry.
I would want to align myself with the submission of my colleagues to say that appropriation is one of the paramount functions of Parliament, and it is something that has to be taken with seriousness, particularly given this ministry, Niger Delta Ministry, that is the platform for which the nation is addressing the developmental gaps in the Niger Delta. And to that effect, we would need to approach this business with every sense of responsibility and seriousness.
The committee, however, called off the budget presentation due to failure by the ministry to send advance copy of its budget defense to the committee, as the chairman reacted to expectations from the ministry.
Plenary will resume on Tuesday, but we are all back here because they said come and look at the budget. But when we come, you are not giving us the necessary information. What do you want us to do? We cannot just sit down and pass a budget like that. We have to look at it and dissect it and look at the areas of need.
The next hearing for the ministry's budget defense was, however, slated for Thursday, 18th of January. Emmanuel Ehijne, PTV News.
government to ensure adherence to, particularly to the 2017 Appropriation Act as passed by the National Assembly. I did mention that this is going to be in two parts. For some of you, we've already looked at your performance for 2017. I'm sure some agencies, I wasn't available, but the deputy presided. But for some other agencies, we have not done that. For some agencies, we were at your place, visited you for the purposes of oversight in compliance with this section, the 11th section of the Constitution, as I mentioned. Based on the observations he made, he moved a motion that we step down NCDC, following from the points and issues he raised, which includes, but not limited to, the fact that we have not been able to do oversight on the center.
If I can go to 2018 budget, I'll start from page 4. In page 4, the budget we are presenting is an envelope given to us by the Ministry of Health.
Page 4?
Page 4, yes. What it means is that it is their limit that we are following, not that it is what we actually need. On personnel costs, they have 215 million approximately.
Are you on IPs?
Yes, we are on IPs. Yes, we are on IPs. And on overhead costs, we have 1.5 million for 5. We have about zones of 5 offices with the head office here. And we are given 1.5 million to run the 5 offices for the year. And we have a capital budget of 27.38 million, giving us a total of 244 million, including the personnel.
The 5 key achievements that I've listed, firstly, is for the first time operationalizing the National Reference Lab in Gadua on the outskirts of Abuja, which was not functional by the time I addressed you at the beginning of last year, responding to over 30 outbreaks across the country, establishing an incident coordination center here in Abuja, increasing awareness to all infectious diseases, and finally, building a new parastatal. This is a new organization. You would have heard that the bill establishing NCDC is currently going through the Senate, has gone through 2 hearings, will come to the House of Representatives after that process.
The program names are listed on the 4th column from the left. We look at data collection for operational research and survey, for instance. Yes.
It is strange the way project document is prepared here, such that you do not have what we call monitor or explanatory note. You see that when document is presented, we do not start asking questions, what is this all about? There will always be a page like this that will show you in general terms, monitoring and evaluation. But we usually have, where I came from, we usually have what we call monitor that will now detail all these things you are talking about. Oh, it will involve purchase of vehicles, so vehicle. It will involve this, engagement of this, and in fact, location.
In terms of looking at the books, how it's generated, how many consultancy services have they done over the years? We should go to the nitty-gritty to be able to place this organization where it's supposed to belong. Yes. The House should take at least 2-3 weeks to look at that organization first. Take time. We have accountants here. We have auditors here in this committee. Just, get them as a committee. Take time. Let them take time for that organization. If we really want to add value to government issues, so that
we'll be able to produce agencies that will be giving Nigeria money. Not just where we pay allowances, we pay overhead, we pay personnel, and yet no result.
The House of Representatives has called on the federal government to urgently address the multi-billion investment in Ikorodu Lighter Terminal and other terminals scattered across the country that are presently not functioning despite the huge money invested in them. This followed the motion sponsored by Honorable Babajimi Benson from Lagos State at plenary on Wednesday. The lawmaker said, given the huge economic challenges confronting the country, expanding the capacity of the terminal to an export gateway and putting its facilities to maximum use will open the economy, boost foreign exchange earning for the country and create jobs.
Mr. Speaker, the House notes that the Ikorodu Lighter Terminal, with 2 large warehouses and adjudged to be one of the largest in this country, is among the 3 light terminals constructed by the Nigerian Port Authority to decongest major ports in Nigeria, particularly the Apapa and Tinkan Island ports in Lagos State. Also note that the multi-billion naira investment is almost moribund as it is operating below capacity, thus contributing nothing significant to the nation's economy.
Some lawmakers, while supporting the motion, stressed the need for the realistic efforts to rehabilitate the terminals to ensure effective utilization for the interest of business and the nation's economy.
Speaker, I quite agree with the poser. Why is it called lighter? Or is it just a transit terminal? But I think the fact that it's called lighter cannot lead us to a conclusion that it cannot be heavier.
Mr. Speaker, there's no time like this. And I know the Committee of Harbor is always on ground to do justice to what they know to do. Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this motion and I agree with the total submission of the mover of this motion, and urge my colleagues to give support to this motion, because Nigeria requires a lot of revenue, and not only revenue, our teaming supporters who are the grassroots need jobs.
It may interest this House to note, sir, that it's still easier to ship goods for Nigerian to ship goods through neighboring countries. Is easier to clear up to this moment than Nigeria. So by making or activating this waterways, I believe is going to help boost the economy, not just that of Lagos or its constituency. It's going to boost the economy of the nation.
The House, however, mandated the committees on ports, harbors and waterways, customs and legislative compliance to visit Ikorodu Lighter Terminals and other terminals and ports in the country for assessment. Also, the committee is to liaise with stakeholders to bring the terminals to effective use and report back in 6 weeks for further legislative action. Emmanuel Ehijine, PTV News.